The Rhode Island Foundation, partnering with passionate Rhode Islanders to lead, transform, and inspire our state. Learn more at rhodeislandfoundation.org.
Welcome to another segment of In Another Opinion, a public information program where our discussions are focused on the communities of color in the state of Rhode Island. I'm your host, Peter Wells. Today's guest is John M. Kelly, President and Chief Executive Officer of Meeting Street School. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's great to be on.
John, you and I were talking in the green room.
Sure.
And there is a misnomer about your operation, Meeting Street School, and what it's about. Could you give me an overview of what the school is really about?
Sure. I mean, the misnomer starts with the school. Everybody calls us Meeting Street School, and the school probably represents about 20% of the kids we work with. We work with probably about 3,500 kids a year who are under the age of 6.
Wow.
And they're all over Providence and all over the state. And we work with them. We have WIC programs, so that's a nutritional assistance program. We have an early Head Start program, which is really working with kids birth to 3. We have the Healthy Families America program, working with kids birth to 3. And our largest program is our early intervention program, and that's working with kids birth to 3 as well. And it's all really focused on families coming to us so that they think their child may have an issue, or they're not sure and they want to get assessed, or they may be families who are living in poverty or have socioeconomic challenges who need a little extra help. So we get families from all different types of backgrounds.
So the student body is not all students who have special needs?
No. I would say probably about a third of our kids are kids with special needs, and 2/3 are kids without special needs. And when I say without special needs, I'm talking about from a developmental standpoint.
Right.
I mean, one of the things we talk about more and more is every child is special,
Yes.
you know, and every child has special needs. But it's really meeting a child and meeting a family where they are and helping them move forward.
So how long has Meeting Street School been in existence?
We were founded in 1946.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were founded on Meeting Street in Providence. That's where the name came from. It wasn't someone thought Meeting Street would be a great name, real original. And we were founded as a school for kids with disabilities because back then there was no education going on, there was no requirement. And we were founded by a pediatrician, and Eric Denhoff, and a woman named Poggy Langdon, who was the head of the Gordon School in East Providence. And they came together to start a school for kids with special needs.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was a connection between Meeting Street and Meeting Street.
Absolutely. The school building's still there. It's right behind the fire station, 24 Meeting Street. Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So how many children? You said about 3,500.
Under the age of 6, yeah.
And that's what your student body would be?
No, our student body's probably another 500 kids.
Okay.
So we operate 4 schools on the Eddy Street campus. So, well, we operate 3, but there's a 4th school there. So we have an early learning center, which is kids from 6 weeks all the way up to pre-K, which is 5 years old. Then we have a K-8 school, the Grace School. Both of those schools are for kids with and without special needs. So again, a third of the kids have special needs, 2/3 don't. They're coming because of the academics, the small class size. I mean, they're doing great. And then we have a high school, the Carter School, which is just for kids with special needs. And recently, it's been there for 4 years now, we sponsored a charter school, the Hope Academy, which serves kids from Providence and North Providence who apply through a lottery.
And what are the age brackets for those?
That starts at kindergarten and it'll go all the way up to 8th grade. Right now, they're up to 4th grade. They're adding a grade a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the campus is beautiful. I mean, I watched
Thanks.
it go up, and I said, my gracious,
Yeah.
the cost of maintaining this place must be out of sight.
It can be a little high.
And so do the parents make up some of that cost? Is there a cost for going to the school?
We do, different programs run different ways, but for the most part, our parents really don't pay anything. Particularly early childhood programs, they're pretty much free for families. Our early learning center, families do pay for their children to go to that. We run it as a 5-day-a-week program. And then our K-8 school, the Grace School, that's considered a private school. So kids without special needs there's a tuition to go there. It's $9,100. And probably about 80% of the kids are on some form of scholarship. So we raise about $400,000 a year in scholarship. A lot of the kids we're serving are from the local community. So there's a bit of need there. And then the Hope Academy obviously is free because it's a public charter school.
Wow. I had no idea that much activity was going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, at basically very little cost or no cost.
Yeah.
To the parents that are there. What are the characteristics or the demographics of the student body, would you say?
Oh, well, we're a minority-majority organization, and we have been for years. I would say probably about 60 to 65% of our kids come from a traditional minority background. You know, we still laugh about using even the word minority because minority is now the majority. But I don't know that people will ever agree to switch the definition around. So we have, and then we have probably about 25% of our families, English isn't the primary language in the home. 2/3 of our families are families in lower socioeconomic status. Over 75% of our families live in urban neighborhoods. I mean, any type of kid you can imagine or any type of family you can imagine, we've got it. I mean, and that's kind of what we pride ourselves on, that everybody feels welcome there and that we're there for any type of kid and any type of family.
I know that there's a lot of people who don't know that.
Yeah.
In fact, I totally thought it was the reverse,
right,
frankly, because I assumed that was a very expensive school, and therefore it would probably be the majority would be white and not minority.
No, you come over there, I mean, you come through the hallways, it's a pretty active place. I mean, you know, and we're very fortunate, you know, like you said, people aren't paying, but at the same time, we're raising about $1.5 million a year from the community that allows us to do these amazing things. I mean, we're out there fundraising every single year. You know, we have the telethon, the big event in January, but it allows us to do the things we're doing.
Now, I saw a big field there, sports field. Now, you don't have teams, do you?
Not yet. Actually, we just started a cross-country team, and we're starting a basketball team this winter because we just graduated our first 8th grade class in May. So now we're getting the older kids in the middle school, they want teams. But right now what we're building is a new track and a soccer field. So if you come down 95, that's what you see is going on. And that'll probably be done within a month, by the beginning of November, early November, the latest.
And you have another building going up, I noticed.
Yeah, on Eddy Street we're putting an addition on, so we're adding more classrooms, and that's mainly to help our Grace School, which is our K-8 school, and also the Hope Academy, the public charter school, because that's growing. And then when that's all done, we're going to build another building on Eddy Street as well, which will just be for all the young kids. It'll be an early childhood development building, so we're really excited about that.
Now, this campus has grown tremendously since you've been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you see that you're going to run out of space? Or?
Well, we bought more property, so we're okay right now. I'm hoping that if we need more space, it's going to be my successor's issue and not mine. I'm hoping we've built enough. We're probably about 11 acres now. And you know, we're really excited to come back to South Providence and to be in South Providence and to not only be serving the community, but also to have an economic development and community development impact. We really pride ourselves on creating a nice campus for the neighborhood.
Do you have campuses anywhere else in the state?
Not in Rhode Island. Well, we have a presence at St. Joseph's Hospital over on Peace Street in Broad. We have a WIC office over there, but then over in New Bedford and Dartmouth, we have a campus over there. We serve probably about 1,000 kids over in that area.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. That was about 4 years ago. They came to us and asked us to take over an organization that was over there, the Schwartz Center.
So let me ask you a question. When kids matriculate through the system, do they go from there to another private school? Or?
Our kids, it's interesting. Our kids go all over. Some of our kids test into classical. We've got a kid at Moses Brown. We had kids that went to LaSalle, Hendricken. And we've got couple kids that went into the Providence public school system. So it all depends on where the families are and where they want to go. And that's one of our big things now, is working to make sure our kids get to where they need to go.
Yeah, that was going to, and regardless of whether they need special needs or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're there to help every kid thrive. You know, and for every child's an individual, and for every kid it looks a little different.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what's the future of Meeting Street School?
I don't know. Once we get this early childhood building done, I mean, the only thing that we're starting to hear families push about, and I hope I don't have to deal with it, but we may have to, is, you know, our 8th graders now, we're getting more and more families who are saying, well, why can't they stay here for 9th grade? Why can't you continue on into a high school? We're not talking about doing that right now, but I wouldn't be surprised in the years ahead it doesn't become more and more of a conversation.
What would be the obstacle to that, John?
Money, more than anything else. I mean, finding a physical space. We could probably do it a little bit over on Eddy Street. And then you want to make sure if you're going to do a high school, it's rich enough for the kids. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure you're able to offer everything. You know, our schools right now are very small, so it's harder to offer a full menu of services and classes, so we want to make sure we be able to do that.
Well, see, you have right around the corner. You have the big complex on.
Oh yeah, JSEC, yeah, Juanita Sanchez, yeah.
Any way of
In Pais.
connecting with that?
We do a little bit with them, but not much. And then you got Roger Williams Middle School further down. I mean, you got a lot of kids there, and you got Fogarty around the corner. Yeah, there's a lot of schools there.
But we're not ready.
We're not there yet. I'm hoping it's after me.
Well, just on a side note, what brought you into this operation?
Yeah, well, I started off as a volunteer there. I was an attorney in town, and our law firm represented Meeting Street, and they asked me to go over there and help with some things. I think I helped with their bylaws initially. Then I got involved in the board and some committees, and then the CEO left, and they asked me if I'd come in, if I'd be interested. And I said, sure, I'll try it. And that was 20 years ago. If you had told me I'd be doing this, I would have said absolutely not.
Well, how big is your staff?
We have probably about 200 people in Rhode Island and about another 100 over in Massachusetts, about 300 professionals.
Wow.
Yeah. And they've all got opinions.
I'm sure they do.
But they're good. They're very good.
So are they certified the same as a regular school teacher?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our teachers are generally dual certified, so you meet all the Rhode Island standards, but one of the things that we've been doing is generally teachers get certified as general education or special education. We're getting our teachers certified in both because one of the things that everybody's coming around to is the importance of teaching to an individual child. And special education really trains you how to do that. So we want to make sure our general educators know that as well.
Most schools today don't have a lot of connection with family.
Yeah.
How are the family and parents connected to the school?
Our families are very connected, and we want them even more connected. Just last week we had 150, no, what they had, we had 100 kids in the school, and they had 150 parents and kids, other kids came for the welcome back ceremony, well, the welcome back event. So we had 250 kids there, 250 people there Thursday night. And then we had Wednesday night, the Hope Academy had their same thing. We have a family PTA association, and we do events throughout the year. I mean, you really want the parents engaged because while we're working with kids, we're working with them for a limited period of time. I mean, parents are with them 24/7. And at the end of the day, the parents are going to be that child's best advocate, their best teacher, their best therapist. So anything we can do to work in partnership with them, that's what we want to do.
You know, you made a statement, which I don't disagree with,
Yeah.
that the parent is with them 24/7. However, I would say a lot of the students that you're working with from that neighborhood,
Yeah.
The parent isn't there 24/7 because mainly they're working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends
A lot of our
meet.
families are working all over the place. Yep, just to make ends meet. You're absolutely right. And you know, that's one of the reasons why, you know, we start earlier in the day and the kids can stay till 6 or so. You know, we do the breakfast program, we do the lunch program, we send some kids home with food on the weekends. I mean, the reality is there's a lot of working poor in Rhode Island, and it's really meeting people where they are. I mean, and I've never met a family who doesn't want what's best for their kid. It's a matter of how do they get there.
Yeah.
You know, if anything we can do to help, that's what we want to do.
So on that vein, are there any requirements for family, parents?
No. I mean, we want them to participate, but you know, like you said, some families it's a reality. They can or they can't. If the kid wants to participate and the family can't, we'll make sure the child gets there one way or the other. We do a lot of stuff along those lines.
John, is there any data on how successful the program has been?
We just graduated our first 8th grade class, so we're going to start collecting it. But the data we've been doing all along, I mean, when we do our 3rd grade testing and our other testing, we've been comparing it with the state testing assessments as well. Our kids are doing above the state average in reading and in math. The other benefits that we're getting that we didn't really focus on from an inclusive perspective, and inclusion just means you've got kids with special needs and kids without in the same classroom together. One of the big things going on in urban education right now, and particularly with charter schools, is there's been this whole conversation around you can teach kids math, you can teach them reading. How do you teach them empathy? How do you teach them compassion? And that's one of the things we have in droves.
We need a lot more of that today.
You come over to the Grace School and you can see when you and I walk into a room as an adult, when we see a child in a wheelchair, the wheelchair is the first thing we notice. You talk to one of our students who's in that classroom who doesn't have special needs, and they'll talk about their friend Joey who's in a wheelchair, and they'll tell you Joey doesn't take turns, Joey hates the color red, Joey likes this, Joey likes that. It's probably the 7th or 8th time before you realize the kid's in a wheelchair because they don't see it.
Yeah.
You know, they see that's my friend, and that just happens to be how he gets around. And so the kids we're hoping that we're creating, just going out to the community is awesome.
So does that must create some sort of a Well, you have to be special teacher to understand that and be able to work with all the different levels.
You do, and
growth.
you do, and at the same time, Peter, I mean, we've talked about it before. Kids don't grow up with prejudice; they're taught prejudice, and so kids are very compassionate human beings, and it's really creating an environment where that compassion can continue and can continue to thrive, and it doesn't get kind of pushed down. It doesn't get changed by society, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to create better citizens and better kids.
But what about on the curriculum side? I'm not saying that a student in a wheelchair is a slower learner than someone who's not.
Right.
But how do you reach all the different levels? I imagine, especially with some children who do have special needs.
Oh yeah, I mean, what we do is basically every child has an individualized learning plan. So the teacher may be teaching a content area, but she's teaching it 6 different ways based on what's going on with the child and where that child is. One of the things we've discovered is a lot of kids with special needs, historically, people haven't pushed them as much. Oh, that poor little guy is in a wheelchair. And so that poor little guy is 10 years old, and any 10-year-old, if they can get out of doing schoolwork, they're going to get out of doing schoolwork.
Sure.
So one of the things we're doing now is, okay, let's push them a little more, and we're really seeing their academic outcomes improving as well.
How do the teachers adapt?
The teachers are incredible. I mean, they get it because they spend so much of their time trying to figure out, how do I connect with that child? And particularly when you've got a background in special education, if you've got a child with a communication issue or developmental delay, or there's, pervasive physical disability, there's a kid in there. And it's like, how do I get that kid out? So they spend a lot of time doing that. And then when you've got a kid without special needs, it's just taking that same skill set and figuring out what's going on in there. I mean, so many of our kids are growing up with traumatic stressors in their lives. And it's really, how do you connect with them?
Yeah. One of my little pet peeves with education today, especially in public schools, is when Johnny misbehaves, all of a sudden he's got ADD or ADH, and we're feeding him pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a problem at your school or no?
We're not a big fan of it. I mean, there are some kids who obviously need to be on some form of medication, but there's some kids who they don't need to be. It's really about setting boundaries and setting things and working with mom and dad, like, how do we change this behavior? And what we're doing in school, how are you able to carry it on at home? And many of our parents are, when we have got kids like that, they want the help.
Yeah.
They know, I don't want people viewing my child as a problem. I want people viewing my child as he's a great kid. So what can we do as far as that goes? We do a lot of work around sensory, and sensory integration, sensory behavior modification. So we do a lot of stuff with that.
We were talking in agreement, and we both have family members that were in education.
Totally, yeah.
I'll tell you, I don't remember when I was going to school, or even hearing my parents talk about students that needed medication because of behavior issues. It was always usually blamed on diet or lack of sleep, things of this nature. But now it's, give them a pill.
That's the way we do some of it. And at the same time, I mean, the things we expect teachers to deal with today is amazing. I mean, we expect teachers to be the social workers. We expect them to be the caseworkers. We expect them to make sure the kids are eating. We expect them to make sure, it's amazing all this burden we're putting on teachers. And one of the things we're trying to do is figure out how can we support it and not necessarily put it on the teachers, but make sure it is happening for that child and that family.
Would you say that it's the parents that are putting this pressure on students, on teachers rather, or is it the administration?
I think it's society as a whole, Peter. I mean, one of the things, when we grew up, it wasn't uncommon for only one parent to be working if there were 2-parent households and one parent was home. That's unusual today. Today, both parents are generally working or out there looking for employment, and so the child may not have that support going on all day. So there's just so many stressors, more stressors on families today. Life has gotten a lot more complicated. I mean, and I know I sound like I'm getting older and everything, but it was a lot easier when I was younger. It was a lot easier. And you had people in the neighborhood who they kept an eye on you, and they told your parents when you weren't behaving.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really happen today.
True.
Every family is like their own little island today.
And that's difficult.
Yeah.
And then of course if you add technology to that, then where does the kid go?
No, the technology stuff is scary. Yeah. And that's one of the new things you're hearing people talk about more and more is we've been talking about literacy and the problem with literacy. Now the whole problem is technology literacy. Are poor kids getting access to technology?
Yeah,
so where does that put them?
Just skip right over reading.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow. I imagine because of this that you probably have some sort of focus in the curriculum on how to use technology wisely, I suppose.
Oh yeah, we do tons of that, particularly with our middle schoolers, but we're even starting with our younger kids. We are almost at a point where we're one-to-one, so every child has their own either Chromebook or iPad. Because we really, kids today need to know. They need to know it. That's the world they're growing up in.
And what, do they do projects with it?
Well, they do a lot of projects with it. They'll do research projects with it. They'll do reports on it. We have some kids who are using it for speech therapy. We have some kids who I mentioned to you earlier producing their own videos. So we do a lot of different things with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So education is changing. I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm a dinosaur when it comes to
I think we both are.
reading, writing, and arithmetic. These things were important. But I talk to a lot of young people today, and I say, how would you manage if you didn't have your phone?
Yeah.
Or if you didn't have your iPad?
Yeah.
If there was no electricity, what would you do?
Well, I mean, this younger generation, they're growing up. That's their primary means of communication. They don't sit down and have a conversation like this. They'll text back and forth.
No, and it's not only the youngsters.
Yeah.
It's the whole millennium generation.
Yeah.
Because I've been out. Often you go into a restaurant.
Yeah.
And two people, a couple will come in and sit down, and they pull out their phones, and they're each on their phone.
Yep.
The food comes, they eat while they're each on their phones, and then they leave. And I'm saying to myself, was that a date?
And it's not just the millennials. I was at a dinner Saturday night, and there was a 72-year-old guy who was on his phone the whole time. I was just like, you want to be present? They're just the whole time.
So the connection, the overlap between education and development today, and managing society today, socially.
Yep.
Where are we going with this?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm glad I'm at the age I'm at. I don't think I'd do as well with the way things are going growing up. I mean, I'm much more of a verbal person. We're moving more and more away from that. And I mean, that's one of the things we focus on at school is we do little simple things with our kids, like how do you make eye contact with an adult? How do you look at people when you're talking to them? How do you greet people? Kids aren't taught that anymore.
No.
So that's a lot of stuff we really focus on.
And hence the level of lack of civility in our society.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad that you're focused on that because it's a problem.
Oh, it's a real problem.
Getting back to the school for a minute, upon graduation, you said that the kids just go wherever their parents
we
or
work
they
with them. We'll
choose to
start
go.
working with them at the end of the 7th grade about where they're going to go after 8th. So many of our kids they test into classical, so they'll go into the classical school in Providence. Last year we had some kids who, LaSalle, Hendricken. We had a little girl who went to MB. Trying to think, and a couple went into the Providence public high schools. But it's really figuring out what works best. A couple went to St. Patrick's. It's figuring out what's best for the kids and what's best for the family. And unfortunately, many of our kids, as I mentioned, probably about 80% of our kids are on some form of financial aid, and generally it might be full scholarship. And some of these private schools don't do full scholarships. Like we had a young man who got into a school he wanted to go to and would have been a great fit for him. And the school came back and said, well, we only give this much aid, so the family's got to come up with $2,500. And we said, the family doesn't have $2,500. Yeah. So why are you even accepting him then? Because why put them through this? I mean, we've had full scholarship the whole time he's been here. You knew that going in. It's a shame.
It is a shame. And then, too bad there weren't more meeting street schools. I mean, really, because the focus and the concept of the whole wraparound situation is that you don't get that in public schools.
Some public schools, there's silos. Some public schools do a good job, but I mean, you really got to work at it. And unfortunately, particularly in urban education, I mean, they just keep getting cuts and cuts and cuts. And it's like, if we didn't raise $1.5 million a year, we wouldn't be able to do it. So it's those things you're able to do and go out and in the community. If the community didn't support us, we wouldn't be able to do it. But you're absolutely right. That is what kids need today. They need that full wraparound, and families need it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about, and I've even spoken about it on occasion on different guests that we've had in the education field. We're moving away from buildings.
Yeah.
And of course, that means more technology
Yeah.
For access.
Yep.
Do you see that as something that you're going to do as well, or are you going to try to keep it in-house?
I think we're going to, I mean, most of our younger programs are all home-based, so we're out in the community. I think our schools, we're going to keep them the way they are, because one of the things we've noticed with a lot of our kids is they want that space. Our school is a safe place. They know when they come there, they're going to get taken care of. They know they're going to be, safe. They know they're going to get breakfast. They know they're going to get lunch. They're going to be with adults who really care about them. It's a real safe, nurturing place for our kids, and we don't want to give that up.
Yeah. It's a shame, John.
Yeah.
I know I look at libraries that are closing,
Yeah.
which used to be safe places.
Yeah.
And in fact, for a lot of youngsters in developing communities, the only place they can go to get access to a computer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's going away.
Yep.
So we're gonna have a future of.
Yeah. Well, we're creating haves and have-nots, and one of the things we're trying to do is, with our the little group that we hit, hopefully stop it as much as you can. But you're right, it's not, growing up poor in a city in America today is not a great place to be.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
The only thing that saved me was the boys club, quite frankly,
Yeah.
growing up.
I go with the boys club too.
Yeah, that was the place
Yeah.
to go, because I couldn't afford the Y.
Yeah.
Back
Ours
in
was
those
25 cents. That's all we had to pay.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to turn in bottle caps
Yeah.
in bottles to get that 15,
Yeah.
20 cents
Yeah.
to go.
Yep.
But I couldn't afford the Y.
Yeah.
It was interesting. But that's another subject that we can talk about another time. John, listen, I thanks for coming on.
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you, besides the future we've talked
Yeah.
about, what do you think about Meeting Street's future? Because of all the things we're talking about.
Yeah. I think there will always be a need for Meeting Street, and particularly our mission and our vision really focusing on this concept of one community and one society and inclusivity. The challenge we'll always have will be the resources. I mean, we live in a poor state. We're in a poor city, and it's the challenge is always getting those resources. I mean, as we have more and more people with more and more needs, it's like there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah.
And I worry about that a lot. I mean, that's why I think about that all the time. Like, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to do it? And everything is needed.
Yeah.
And it's a question of how do you figure out how you're going to balance it. That's my biggest worry going forward, is the resources.
Well, clearly you've been doing a good job at it up to now. We have run out of time, but I want to thank today's guest, John Kelly, and you, the viewers, for tuning in to another segment of In Another Opinion. A special thanks to PBS for making this program possible. I'm your host, Peter Wells. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at IA Opinion, and have a great day.
The Rhode Island Foundation, partnering with passionate Rhode Islanders to lead, transform, and inspire our state. Learn more at rhodeislandfoundation.org.